"We Krupps never die in bed." That was a saying within the Krupp family, referring to their generations of Iron Men who built Germany's war machine. You see, the Krupp Dynasty has impacted how wars are fought, how nations arm themselves, and even how entire conflicts unfold, things that impact us to this day. The Krupp family was so powerful at one point that no German leader, from the Kaiser to Hitler himself, would dare wage war without their approval. Now, many of you already know that the Krupps made weapons and steel. However, there's a good chance you're underestimating their direct role in causing the bloodiest conflicts in human history. I mean, Gustav Krupp von Bohlen himself said, "I am ready to put everything I have at the service of the fatherland." It just goes to show that he knew very early on that weapons manufacturing made kings and emperors, and that loyalty to power was more profitable than loyalty to morality. From supplying Napoleon's enemies to arming the Third Reich, the Krupps are undeniably the most dangerous family in modern history. Now, our story begins with Friedrich Krupp. He was a man of modest means, however, he was really smart and incredibly determined. He was born in 1787 in Essen, Germany, in a small merchant family. His father operated a modest retail business, nothing special. That area was tough, constantly caught between French occupation under Napoleon and the chaos of German principalities fighting for survival. Friedrich could have remained a shopkeeper, but he had bigger ambitions. In 1811, he founded a small steel foundry with two partners in Essen. They had 3 employees and produced mostly tools and utensils. It was hardly the beginning of an empire, but Friedrich had recognized something crucial. Whoever controlled steel controlled the future of warfare. Life for Friedrich would have turned out very differently had he stuck to making cooking pots. However, things changed dramatically when he began experimenting with crucible steel, a harder and more reliable material than anything else available. He worked obsessively, often to the detriment of his health and family finances. The business nearly bankrupted the family multiple times. Friedrich died in 1826, exhausted and disappointed, believing he'd failed. He hadn't. He'd laid the foundation for something far more sinister. His son, Alfred Krupp, inherited the struggling foundry at just 14 years old when Friedrich died. Alfred was forced to abandon his education and take over the business to support his mother and siblings. Those early years were brutal. He had only 7 employees, and the business was drowning in debt. But Alfred was different from his father. Friedrich had been an inventor, Alfred was a businessman, a ruthless one. He understood that steel wasn't just about quality, it was about scale, monopoly, and proximity to power. Now in this foundry, one of his first breaks came when he perfected seamless railway wheels and springs. Railways were expanding across Europe, and Alfred positioned Krupp as the supplier. By the 1840s, his products were being used across the continent. But Alfred knew where the real money was: weapons. In 1847, he produced his first steel cannon. It was superior to bronze cannons in every way: lighter, stronger, more accurate, and it would change warfare forever. Alfred didn't just make weapons, he marketed them with a missionary zeal, traveling to military leaders across Europe, offering demonstrations, bribes, and whatever else it took to secure contracts. By the 1850s, Alfred had grown obsessed with a singular vision: making Krupp indispensable to the German state. When Prussia went to war with Denmark in 1864, Krupp supplied the artillery. When Prussia crushed Austria in 1866, Krupp's guns led the way. And when Prussia destroyed France in the Franco-Prussian War of 1870-71, it was Krupp's steel cannons that sieged Paris into submission. Alfred Krupp became known as the Cannon King. Kaiser Wilhelm III himself visited the Essen factory and called it "my armory." You see what happened here? The Krupps had become not just suppliers to the state, but partners with the state. And that partnership would have catastrophic consequences. Now here's where the Krupp strategy really showed. You see, while other arms manufacturers sold to whoever would pay, the Krupps cultivated exclusive relationships with the German government. Alfred pioneered vertical integration decades before Carnegie. He bought coal mines, iron ore mines, and steelworks. He controlled every step from raw material to finished weapon. This gave him pricing power and made him irreplaceable. By 1873, the Krupp factory employed 16,000 workers, making it one of the largest industrial complexes in the world. Alfred built a company town around his factories, controlling housing, schools, hospitals, even churches. Workers lived entirely within the Krupp ecosystem. It was industrial feudalism. But behind all this efficiency was a darker reality. Alfred Krupp worked his employees to death. The factories ran 24 hours a day. Safety was an afterthought. Workers who complained were blacklisted. Alfred himself was a paranoid tyrant who trusted no one. He never married for love but for dynasty, wedding Bertha Eickhoff to produce an heir. The marriage was miserable. Alfred spent most of his time at his Italian villa, where rumors swirled about his personal life. When a newspaper published allegations about his conduct, Alfred had a breakdown and died in 1887, possibly by suicide. He left behind the largest privately owned company in Europe and a son, Friedrich Alfred, who would take it even further. Friedrich Alfred, called Fritz, expanded the empire dramatically. He diversified into shipbuilding, armor plating, and submarines. By 1900, Krupp employed over 40,000 people. Fritz cultivated relationships with Kaiser Wilhelm II, who visited Essen regularly. The Kaiser called Krupp the armorer of the Reich, but Fritz inherited his father's demons. Rumors about his personal life in Italy led to public scandal. In 1902, a socialist newspaper published accusations about Fritz's conduct in Capri. The scandal destroyed him. Within days, Fritz was found dead. The official cause was stroke, but many suspected suicide. His wife was institutionalized, declared insane to prevent her from speaking about the family. Fritz's daughter, Bertha Krupp, inherited the empire at age 16 in 1902. She was the richest woman in Germany, possibly Europe, but as a woman she couldn't run the company. The German establishment found her a suitable husband, Gustav von Bohlen und Halbach, a Prussian diplomat. They married in 1906, and the Kaiser gave Gustav permission to add Krupp to his name. Gustav Krupp von Bohlen became the public face of the dynasty, and he was about to help start the First World War. Now let's talk about 1914, because this is where the Krupp influence becomes undeniable. You see, in the decades before World War I, the Krupps were the primary drivers of the European arms race. They sold weapons to Germany, Russia, Austria, Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. Often, Krupp weapons on both sides faced each other in battle. When Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in Sarajevo in June 1914, Europe stumbled toward war, and the Krupps were ready. Their factories had been preparing for this moment for years. Gustav Krupp assured the Kaiser that German artillery was superior to anything France or Britain possessed. This confidence was one factor in Germany's decision to go to war. Without Krupp's assurances, would Germany have been so aggressive? We'll never know. But what we do know is that Krupp's Big Bertha howitzers devastated Belgian and French fortifications in 1914, making Germany's invasion possible. During World War I, Krupp factories produced 10,000 artillery pieces, millions of shells, and employed over 168,000 workers. The company made obscene profits while millions died in trenches. When Germany lost in 1918, the Treaty of Versailles specifically targeted Krupp, limiting their production and confiscating patents. Gustav was even briefly prosecuted as a war criminal but was never convicted. The family was humiliated but not destroyed, and they would have their revenge. The 1920s were difficult for Krupp. The Versailles restrictions hobbled production, and the Great Depression devastated the German economy. But Gustav secretly maintained relationships with German military leaders, preparing for rearmament. In exchange, the Nazis gave Krupp slave labor from concentration camps. By the late 1930s, Krupp factories were again producing tanks, artillery, and submarines. When Hitler invaded Poland in 1939, starting World War II, Krupp weapons led the way. The family had helped cause another world war. During the war, Krupp used over 100,000 slave laborers from concentration camps, working them to death in appalling conditions. Thousands died in Krupp factories. Gustav's son, Alfred Krupp, ran daily operations and was fully complicit. They knew exactly what they were doing. When Germany lost in 1945, Allied forces arrested Gustav and Alfred. Gustav was deemed mentally unfit to stand trial due to dementia. But Alfred was prosecuted at Nuremberg in 1947. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. And please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already.